Stars Witaguan. Russell Simmons' claim that ex-wife stole stock to pay new husband's bail is bogus, says feds. Which part? We know Kimora's new husband, that Tim Meissner guy, was already married, so he wasn't really her husband. And can she steal stock if it was signed over to her? Anyway, Russell Simmons has claimed that his ex-wife, Kimora Lee Simmons, took his stock from an energy drink company to pay for her husband, Tim Meissner, to be bailed out of jail. But the federal government disagrees. Not the feds. According to court documents, the United States government has filed a memorandum of law in support of the dismissal of Simmons' claim for the stock, which is in the company's Celsius. I think it's that sports drink. You see it piled up for sale at Target and different places. The government's position, as made clear in the memo filed on Thursday, December 7th, is that Simmons has no stake in the claim. They lay out several reasons for this. First, that he was a minority shareholder in the corporation from which the stock was taken, and a shareholder in a corporation does not own the corporation's assets. Second, the government has taken the position that this wasn't a proper stock sale or transfer in the first place. Rather, they claim that Meissner was moving proceeds from a bribery and money laundering scheme around. Interesting. You know, there was a time when Russell Simmons had high-powered lawyers at his disposal. What's going on here? Additionally, the government claims that Simmons gave up his interest in the corporation that initially received the stock years before the transfer took place. Gave up his interest. Gave it up? Or I want to understand what gave up means. And his claim that he later regained that interest doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Well, how do you give up interest? Did you sign it over to her? Did you sign your interest away? Like, what is that transaction? The Celsius stock, do you guys drink Celsius, by the way? The Celsius stock was purchased in 2015 as part of a complicated Malaysian bribery scheme. The government alleges. Now remember, is our friend Praz Karel from the Fugees, is this the same Malaysian money that's given some worry to Praz, and Leonardo DiCaprio testified, and Kim Kardashian maybe got a garbage bag of ones amounting to $500K in Vegas? Is this all the same story? There was some guy named Lowe. Anyway, part of a complicated Malaysian bribery scheme, the government alleges, and issued the company New Horizons Investments, in which Simmons at one point had a minority stake, and Meissner the majority stake. Now, this is post-divorce. The Celsius stock was purchased in 2015 as part of a complicated Malaysian bribery scheme, the government alleges, and issued to the company New Horizons Investments, in which Simmons at one point had a minority stake and Meissner the majority stake. In 2018, Meissner was bonded out of jail by his wife, quote, wife, Kimora Lee Simmons Meissner, Russell's ex-wife, for $20 million. An amount that was secured by those shares of Celsius stock. In March of this year, the government seized that same stock as part of a forfeiture order against Meissner. Now, again, my understanding was that Meissner was never properly married to Kimora because he was never properly divorced before. So how does her stock become part of a forfeiture order against her husband? Is that what happens when you bond someone out of jail? Like, you put that up as either the amount or as collateral, and then even if it's not really your husband, Anyway, documents below. Tim Leissner pleaded guilty to criminal conspiracy to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. In 2018, he was also charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering. I mean, Kimora has to be some kind of 16, because how is the ex-husband and the new, maybe fake husband, how are they getting millions and all this money all stirred up together in one big pot that's being stirred with the devil's spoon? At the time, Russell Simmons alleged that Kimora ponied up $44 million in Celsius stocks, or the equivalent of about 4 million shares, to use as collateral for Leissner's federal bond, pending the outcome of the trial. Simmons recently repeated the claim about the Celsius stock in question in an interview with Graham Benzinger, which went viral on Thursday, December 7th. Quote, "I was very generous and tried to be supportive. We were together 15 years, Kimora and I," he said, "and for 8 years we were married, and together for 7 before that. And then I was best friends with Kimora throughout the entire raising of my children," unquote. Best friends? Or did you want her to think you were best friends? Quote, "So I tried to be flexible and accommodating and supportive," he continued. "And sometimes things don't work out. You've seen the lawsuit. I had no choice. I think Jesus Christ, Lord Buddha, anybody would have sued. She gave what is now today, based on the value of the stock, $800 million to the government illegally. And now I'm fighting to get my half of it back." I don't know the timeline of when they were married, when they were divorced. How are you giving? How are you assigning? How are you moving money around with someone who's your ex-wife, who's supposedly married to somebody else, but that marriage wasn't necessarily valid because he was already married? It's baffling. I mean, if it's his money, he should be able to get his money, but I think this sounds like shenanigans. I'm glad there's a judge kind of looking at all of these different claims, but if you're not married anymore, is this part of the move to Bali and then maybe coming back now that certain laws are expiring? I don't know. It's all very juicy. It seems like there's a lot of mess. But if you have insights or understandings about how this kind of stock game, it sounds like an episode of very specifically The Young and the Restless, right? Where there's companies and there's stock and shenanigans and ex-wives and ex-husbands and bigamy and families. It seems like a made-for-TV movie, and that there's stock, and is Celsius good? Do you drink it? Wasn't a proper stock sale or transfer in the first place. And then this money laundering business, I think the guy's name is Jolo, JHOLOW, something to do with like retiree funds from Malaysia. And boy, that character was having a good old time going around the world, making friends, buying friends, right? Not unlike that. What was that character that had the Sam Bankman-Fried, like buying friends, paying all these influencer fees to Tom Brady and, Larry David and all these characters. And it was all, abracadabra. When you think about all of this in the context of slavery, maybe the only real valuable assets in capitalism are land and labor from people. And if it's not, and if it's on paper and somebody can cross your name off and steal the 800 million? Just off a piece of paper, then what was it really? Was it ever really yours, Russell? But we're here for the drama. Let me know what you think.